First of all, let's pay homage to the Supreme Buddha. Let's say Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Everyone Saranai, may the Noble Triple Gem bless you all. Today also we are going to start our next Dhamma discussion. So last week we discussed 4 types of, 4 natures of suffering. So we discussed about the Pidana Sabhava, the repeated physical and mental agony and suffering. And then we discuss about the Sankhata Sabhava, which means that the producing the causes to gain some pleasant feelings or pleasant happiness or pleasant rebirths. Then Santapa, which means nature of like burning nature in all the realms that beings are facing some sort of displeasure or dislikes or pains. So that's what meant by Santapa suffering. Then Viparinama suffering, the nature of the Viparinama, which means the changing nature. So all the beings, even in Brahma realm, they also have these 4 types of suffering. Then we've discussed about the heavenly realms, Kamavachara Divyaloka, the beings who suffer with these sort of 4 types of suffering. Then the human realm. So these 3 places, how beings suffer according to these types of suffering. So we discuss, so the beings suffer in various ways. For an example, like Sankhata suffering is greater for the Brahmas when they produce jhanas. They have to suffer more with the Sankhata suffering due to the efforts that they have to put. So then they have less other sufferings, like Santapa suffering is quite less for the Brahmas, since they don't have to do anything to maintain their body or to gain food or something like that. But still Viparinama suffering is there. Then when it comes to the heavenly, sensual heavenly realms, we discuss about 6 sensual heavenly realms. So they also, the Sankhata suffering is quite less than the Brahmas. We've discussed like Brahmas need to practice jhanas. So heavenly, sensual heavenly realms, the beings who are born there, they don't have that much of Sankhata sufferings, because that they can be born there by practicing like sila, the morality and generosity, dana, something like that. But then when it comes to the human realm, so there the Sankhata suffering is greater than the Brahmas. When I mean, what I mean more than the Brahmas means like, yes, it is less than Brahmas when they the virtues they have to practice to become humans, but after becoming humans, their Sankhata suffering is quite greater, because they have to do so many things to maintain their life, to feed and something like that. They have to work so hardly. So then the other suffering is like Santapa is quite quite higher than the Brahmas. The Viparinama suffering is also there. And that's those are the things that we discussed last time. So today that we have to talk about the suffering, that the suffering in the hells. This is the topic that we are going to discuss today. So we all know as Buddhists that in the Buddhist teachings, I think you all know there are 4 types of hells: animal realm, Tirachana apaya, then Peta, it is translated to English as hungry ghost. Then the Asura, it is translated as ugly ghost. Here it is translated as titans. Then the Naraka, Niraya, the great hell. So these are the 4 places where beings are born, hellish or the woeful states. So today that I thought to discuss about these 4 places where beings are born and how they suffer in these places. And I would like to quote a sutra as well, which is in Anguttara Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya, Collected Discourses. So suffering in the hells. So as we've discussed so far, that we know the places, the realms, the suffering is various ways or differentiated. As I mentioned earlier, some of the places or realms, the Sankata suffering is greater, since the other Santapa suffering is lesser. Then some other places, the Santapa suffering is greater, but the Sankata suffering is lesser. Something like that. We've discussed these 4 types of suffering. The Pidana is the main one, the repeated suffering. The rest of the 3 is we discussed under the first one, which was called the Pidana Sabhava. So let's see the suffering in the hell according to these the 4 types. Let me read the description in this book that I'm reading, the page number 73. As usually, we've discussed the 4 Noble Truths, which was written by Most Venerable Venerable Ullinduwawe Thero in Sinhalese. So we used to discuss here the translated one into English. So that those who have the books, please turn the pages, the 73, the suffering in the hell. Here the great hell, the Naraka, is translated as purgatory. The purgatory, Naraka, the bestial world. The bestial world means the animal realm. Then the world of pretas, or unholy ghosts, preta realm. Then the world of the titans, asura, are the worlds of suffering. So these are the 4, the hells, the chattaro apaya in the Pali, or the satara apaya. The naraka, the purgatory or the great hell, the animal realm, the bestial world, then the world of petas or unholy ghost, or the ugly ghost, then the world of titans, the ugly ghost, then the previous one, the unholy ghost, they are called hungry ghost. So these are the 4 hells according to the teachings of the Supreme Buddha. Even though these the 4 great hells, I mean, in number 4, there are various categorizers. For an example, I think you might have heard that in the Naraka, the Niraya, there are 136 altogether Nirayas. Then the asura also, there are a number of types like Kala Kanjika Asura, Vemanika Asura, Vinipatika Asura, something like that. So somehow, in brief, there are 4 great hells. All agree to its immensity of suffering. Therefore, herein only a succinct explanation would be made thereof. Skandhas of the beings of hell are brought forth by unwholesome actions. The mind of the layman are easily involved in sinful activity. Thus, for the layman, sin is a delicious thing. Relative to the Sankata Sabhava of Brahmas, gods and humans, the hellish beings could be thought as having less of it. Although Sankata Sabhava is a little less, they can said to have a great deal of Santapa Sabhava. So we all know that in these 4 hells, the beings are suffering. So we have to learn, or we have to study, we have to understand why these beings are being born in these places. We know that we discussed them in the Abhidhamma discussions as well. So we know that the beings are being born in the hell because of their unwholesome actions, sinful deeds. In the Sutra Pitaka, the discourses, we learn there are 10 types of unwholesome actions, which are called as path, karma pata, path leading to the hells. So those actions, sinful deeds, sinful actions, lead to be born in those bad places or the woeful states. According to the Abhidhamma that we, those who studied Abhidhamma know, there are 12 unwholesome consciousnesses, 8 greed-rooted unwholesome consciousnesses, 2 hatred-rooted, 2 ignorance-rooted or delusion-rooted consciousnesses. So among those 12, the 11 consciousnesses, except the one of the ignorance or delusion-rooted, except one of them, like Uddacha Sampayutta Chitta, the other rest of the 11 Chittas have the ability to be born, to make beings be born in the bad places or the woeful places. So that's the main reason why beings are born in those places. So there's skandhas. We've discussed that the beings are nothing but skandhas or the aggregates. So their aggregates are mainly made out of unwholesome actions. So when it comes to the good places, for example, like humans, for us, our skandhas are mainly made out of wholesome karmas. And when it comes to heavenly realm, it's greater. I mean, because of their more powerful wholesome actions. So when it comes to the hell or the woeful places where beings are born, so their skandhas are made out of because of unwholesome actions. So it is explained here like the mind of the layman are easily involved in sinful activity. So that's the nature, the general nature of the beings. They enjoy sinful actions. Here it mentions, thus for the layman, sin is a delicious thing. In Pali we call papasmin ramati mano. beings enjoy doing unwholesome activities, since they do not see or do not understand the consequences. For those who have started to learn the teachings of the Supreme Buddhas, they understand, they can know the consequences of the unwholesome behavior, unwholesome deeds, or sinful deeds, and they can avoid them. So, yes, according to the teachings of the Buddha, for normal people, like the worldly people, they mostly tend to perform or do unwholesome activities. So those who are born in the woeful places or the hells, their main reason is unwholesome deeds to be born in those places. So we all know that the Sankata suffering is higher for the Brahmins, since they have to work so hard to gain jhanas. Then to be born in sensual heavens, it's quite lesser than the Brahmins. Then when it comes to humans, it's also lesser than the Devas. But when it comes to the beings who are being born in the hells, so the woeful places, their Sangata suffering is more or less, I mean, I would say it's compared to the other realms, it's could be said like nothing, because as I mentioned earlier, the normal people, the general people, the worldly people, they don't have to put efforts to do unwholesome. Their natural tendencies most of the time to do unwholesome, and beings enjoy doing unwholesome. So their Sankata suffering is less. Then even though their Sankata suffering is less, but other sufferings like Pidana, the first one, they have to suffer hugely, immensely in the hells. Then the Santapa, they have to suffer incredible amount of times in the hells, and various ways they have to suffer in the hells, which is called Santapa suffering. Yes, they can said to have a great deal of Santapa Sabhava. Now let's discuss about the animal realm, the bestial world, how the animals suffer due to their unwholesome actions. So it's animal realm is only one realm that we can witness, unless if we have not developed some extrasensory perceptions like Dibba Chakku. We won't be able to witness some of the other realms. For those who have developed those special abilities, they can witness some of them. We know that the most venerable Moggallana Maharahat Thero, he has visited the heavenly realms, and sometimes even he has witnessed the Petas and some other beings who were born in woeful places. So I will later discuss the sutra related to Venerable Moggallana Thero. So in animal realms, we can witness it. There are so many, I think, even TV channels also like Discovery, they show how the animal realm, how dangerous the animal realm is, how animals are being eaten alive, how they suffer with this, the santapa, the burning nature of the suffering. It shows. So let's see what this book says about the animal realm. Amongst the 4 types of hells, the bestial world is very visible before our own eyes. Although the suffering is less than the other 3 types of hells, when compared to the human world, its suffering is very extensive. All the animals or beasts comprising the bestial world don't have the requisite knowledge to supply themselves with food that they need. So their suffering is quite less compared to other woeful places like Petas, Asuras, and Nirayas. But when we compare with the human realm, their suffering is immense and very, very huge. Their suffering is because they don't have specific abilities, special abilities to fulfill their basic needs like humans. So they have to undergo immense suffering in the animal realm. If they don't get food naturally, they have to suffer hunger and thirst. Perhaps they have to die by hunger and thirst. The world has abundant creatures that die of hunger and thirst. Most beasts, for want of knowledge to prepare shelter themselves, run amok, being scorched by heat and drenched by rain. They too have a lot of enemies or antagonists. So we all have witnessed these things, how animals die because of hunger, because of thirst, and because of these difficulties. Yes, they also have so many enemies. They always are threatened, frightened to be killed by other powerful animals. As they don't have either the strength or a protector, helper to ward off sudden death, they are invariably pelted with the fear of unexpected death and therefore have to go in hiding. So there are so many animals, they get afraid of even very small sounds, like rabbits, deers, we have seen. They get frightened even for very, very small things, and they just ran away and try to hide themselves to protect themselves by being eaten by some powerful animals. In case of a sickness or a begotten wound, they don't have to know how for recuperation or the recovery. So they don't know how to treat wounds and sicknesses. So they have to undergo huge and immense and intense suffering. So imagine as humans, when we have a headache or something, we have a lot of medications. But animals, they can't even tell somebody they are suffering. They have to bear all those sufferings. When they are weighed down by diseases or wounds, nobody have they as relatives and friends to serve them, but enough they are to eat their flesh, to eject off their eyes, and to suck blood. When mosquitoes and flies suck blood, when crows beak the flesh, and wolves and dogs tore flesh in shreds, a lot of beasts die on their own feces. However much they hide or run, most beasts are unable to avoid or circumvent their more powerful counterparts. So these are the suffering that the animals go through all throughout their lives. So when they get sick or wounds, nobody is to treat them. As it mentions here, no one is to help, but there are plenty of animals to suck blood and eat their flesh. So they have to undergo huge suffering in those animal realms. When once a meek animal is caught by a more powerful beast, the meek one is gormandized, alive without heed to the freakish cry it makes. So when the powerful animals catch these animals, they make good food for themselves, for these innocent animals. Sometimes the meek animals is trampled while being eaten. Humans also kill and eat a lot of bestial animals. When the mother beast is watching, its little ones are snatched and killed, then eaten. Animals such as cows are burned on red heated iron bars. Some animals, for the entirety of their lives, are being caged and tied merely for the enjoyment of the men and women. Animals such as cows are tied till the end of their life and beaten and hit with sticks, come cudgel to force them to work. For their human masters, after having continuously made them work, finally some kill them and eat their flesh as well. So these are some sort of sufferings that the animals have to undergo throughout their lives. Yes, so animal mothers, sometimes they have to watch how their small ones are being eaten. So imagine how much suffering that they go through when they experience these things. That's why it is said that their suffering is immense. These are a few examples pertaining to the santapa dukkha of the beasts. Since bestial animals are devoid of the capability of differentiating between good and bad, wholesome and unwholesome, whatever they do could be categorized as sins, with the result that they are bent on being born in a still darker world than the world they are already in. Therefore, not only living but also dying is as much a suffering for the beast. Birth, living, and dying are exceedingly unwholesome and imminently suffering for the bestial animals. The skandhas of the animals are but sufferings. So while the animals always live, most of the animals out of fear, they don't have any ability. Most of the animals, maybe more than 99%, they won't be able to generate wholesome thoughts. Since some carnivores, they always think how to kill animals, other living beings, and even other all the other animals as well. Most of them cannot generate wholesome thoughts quite easily. So as it explains here, most of them generate unwholesome energies, akusala, because of their sinful deeds. Since they develop unwholesome, their death is also not going to be pleasant. So most of the animals, as explained here in this book as well, after their death, they probably they are going to get rebirth in even worse places. So animal realm is in huge suffering. So yes, my
in the animal world, how is it possible to come out of the animal world if all the animals' actions are unwholesome?
Yeah, the thing is that even for humans, our next life is not decided by just in this life. I mean, what we do in this life. Sometimes in your deathbed, some karmas can come out which you have done in your previous lives. So animals also, it's quite same.
No.
The percentage is very rare, but still the animals can come to the human realm and practice the teachings or whatever. There are some some examples as well. Animals come to the human world, or there's a story that I think some of you might have heard, that Manduka Divyaputra, the story. Have you heard that story?
Can't say I recall it. But...
Yes, in the Buddha's time, there was once when the Buddha was speaking to monks, there was a small frog was listening to the voice of the Buddha. Though he never understood what the Buddha said, but he was so happy to hear that pleasant voice of the Buddha. So he made the pleasant thoughts while he was attentively listening to the voice. There was a boy who looked after cows, and he came with the stick, and he just put his stick on up to the frogs, and then he died on the spot. It's that he was having the wholesome thoughts. He was born in heaven as a heavenly being, and then he came right after the Buddha at that moment, and he was able to even comprehend the teachings, and he became Sotapan as well.
Bhante, that would be a very rare occasion.
Of course, yes, of
if you are
course.
like a lion or a tiger or something.
But still, what I was saying is that still animals, even the percentage may be incredibly less, but they have the capability to come to the human realm. But most of the animals, as it explains here, they tend to be born in even the worst places because of their unwholesome actions.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yes.
Avasara Bhante.
Yes.
Is it by expending their bad karma that they can reach the human world again? Because these days they may not be able to hear the Dhamma or anything like that.
Yours, the difficulty to come to the human realm for animals, is that what you ask?
No, what I'm asking is, Bhante, is it by expending their bad karmas in the animal, when they live in the animal world?
You mean extending?
How they expend when they finish their bad karma, or when they
yes,
exhaust their bad karma, in other words. Is that
no,
is it
not
in that they can come to the human world, or
not actually expending or finish all the bad karma. Is when they are death moment, right? If one of the wholesome karmas which he has done in one of the previous lives as a human or something, that they can come to human realms. Something like that can happen even for the beings who are in even the other places like Niray or something like that. They don't have any chance to generate wholesome thoughts. Yes, it can happen, like after expending their unwholesome karma, they can come to the good places. But the other thing also can happen, as I mentioned.
So that means their Chutisita can be wholesome, kind of.
there's something called Javana Chittas, as we've discussed.
Yes, yes.
Particularly the Chuti Chitta,
Yeah.
dead dying moment. If the wholesome karma, if they can like generate sort of, so they can come to good place. Otherwise, it's impossible to come to human realm.
Thank you, Bhante.
Avasarai Bhante, there's another example of the 500 bats or flying foxes who are in a cage and who listen to the Satipatthana Sutta.
Abhidhamma, I think.
Abhidhamma, right?
There were 500
Bats or flying foxes.
yeah, I think bats. They were listening to some Abhidhamma chanting.
Right.
And yes, because of the wholesome thoughts that they generated, they were born in heavenly realms. So in our Buddha Sasana, they come to human realm, and they all became the disciples of the Venerable Sariputta Thero, and they mastered Abhidhamma. Yes. So these sort of things, yes, can happen, but they are very, very rare. So the animals that, as we witness, there are various types of animals that we can't easily, understand how many types of animals. If we look at the insects, thousands and thousands of varieties, like serpents, then carnivores, like even unbelievable. So then the animals or the fish who live in the water is immense. So all these animals, according to the teachings of the Buddha, the animals are born because of their unwholesome actions. There's no other, there are other reasons, yes, but the main reason is their unwholesome actions.
Avasarai Bhante, in the animal world, if you take say a lion who is catching a prey to eat, what type of unwholesome consciousness arises in that animal? Because it's not a hatred, right?
No,
Is
absolutely.
it lobha?
No, they are hatred.
But that's not out of anger or because they don't like the animal, right? It's just for hunger.
Well, they're driven by hunger, but they kill with anger. Without anger, no one can kill any living being. It's common for animals as well. Even though they are driven by hunger, they kill because of anger. I mean,
so it's dvesa mulika sita.
Of course.
Not lobha.
Not lobha. When you kill, I mean, not you, when beings are killed, they generated always the hatred thoughts. Without hatred thoughts, I mean, nobody can kill. So when they kill living beings, they generate enormous amounts of hatred consciousnesses. That's why it said that they generate always unwholesome, almost all the time. That's why the Buddha, in so many occasions, has explained like being a human is incredibly rare. Once you go to those bad places, it's even very difficult to come to the good places. Even it's common for humans, as it explains.
So even in the animal world, Bhante, if you're an animal that doesn't eat meat, but is like a bird that drinks nectar from a flower, then in that situation, they have less.
Yes, compared to less.
Yeah.
Yes. But still they
cannot generate wholesome thoughts.
Yes, yes.
Mm. Thank you, Bhante.
Yes. Yes, as I mentioned, there are so many TV channels that we can see about animal realm, right?
Mhm. Yes,
Like,
Bhante.
like Discovery or something like that.
Yeah.
It shows.
Because some animals
Mm.
appear to just be very non-confrontational. And
Yes,
if they are plant-eating animals, they may not actually take life in their...
seems like very innocent
Yeah.
and playful. Yes, yes. When you develop this special eye with the teachings of the Buddha, then you can see the world differently. You know, before you, when you learn the teachings, and then you witness these animals, you can generate thoughts why they are being born as animals. You know, these things. Otherwise, people enjoy watching animals.
Mm.
They just represent some result of unwholesome action.
Unwholesome action.
Mm.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yes, okay. It's a good lesson to teach youngsters some new ideas in that manner. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The world of unholy ghosts or pretas. Now let's talk about pretas. The pretas are a class of beings whose suffering enormously exceeds that of beast. They are spontaneously generated origination, which is like a flash of lightning appearing in the sky, like an image appearing in a mirror, without the union of parents, appearing with completely developed organs by the power of karma, is known as spontaneous generation. Generally, those born of parents beget bodies that resemble either or partly both of the parents. So compared to animal realm, the Petha realm, their suffering is huge, the enormous. And this Petha realm and even other rest of the woeful places, the beings are born spontaneously, not like animals or humans. They don't conceive in their mother's womb. They just appear in these realms, as it mentions here, like flash of lightning appearing in the sky. That's called spontaneously born. Like image appearing in a mirror. The main reason, as I explained earlier as well, the karma. The karma is the one that made them to be born in those places in such a way, like spontaneous generation. So as it says here, the humans get their appearance partly for mother or father or even the both, but these beings, these pretas, they get their appearance because of their, just based on unwholesome actions. Spontaneous generation occur by the force of karma. As such, spontaneously generated pretas have bodies depending on their demeritorious actions of multifarious shapes and sizes. As a class of beings, they cannot be exemplified in this manner. Their nature can be fathomed. There are diverse sizes and shapes from canonical texts as Pretavattu Prakarana to familiarize yourself with the multiplicity of pretas. Descriptions by seems by only those who have developed extrasensory types of perceptions, particularly clairvoyance, which means Dibba Chakku. In the Lakkana Samyukta, 21 diversifications of pretas are mentioned. So there are two, there's a text or a book called Petavattu Vannana that you can find and read. It explains how beings are born in these Preta realms, and even there are sometimes some conversation with Arahantas like Sariputta Thera and Moggallana Thera. There are some conversations, and they explain why they are being born in those places. And in the canonical text as well, there's a section called Lakkana Sangyukta, which I'm going to explain the sutra. There are also explained 21 types of diversification of pretas. So like we discussed before, like animals, there are a number of types of animals, like even in pretas, preta realms, there are various types of pretas. That had come within the celestial view, clairvoyance of the great Arahant when Lakkana, the Lakkana Sangyutta, that particular the discourses that I mentioned. One of them was devoid of flesh and blood and was just a skeleton. It was walking on air with a fearful cry of submission pursued by crows belonging to pretas, hawks and eagles that pierce it through the skeleton with their beaks. This is one of the sutras called Lakkana Sangyukta. It was skeleton, Attika, Atti Sankalika Sutta. So I would like to go to the original description and teach you that sutra that was not, it's not quite longer one. So let me read you the sutra and I will later share you to the sutra that you can read. The sutra, the name of the sutra is a skeleton. So this sutra is a conversation with Lakkana Thera and Venerable Moggallana Thera and the Buddha. Let's see what the sutra explains. So I have heard at one time the Buddha was staying near Rajagaha in the bamboo grove, the squirrels feeding ground, Jetavanarame. Not Jetavana, Veluvanarame, bamboo's grove. Now, at the time, Venerable Lakkana and Venerable Mahamoggallana was staying on the Vulture's Peak mountain, Gijjakuta Pabbata. Then the Mahamoggallana robed up in the morning and taking his bowl and robe, went to Lakkana and said to him, "Come, Reverend Lakkana, let's enter Rajagaha for alms." In one morning, Venerable Moggallana asked from Venerable Lakkana Thera to go out for Pindapata, for alms. Yes, Reverend Lakkana replied. As Moggallana was descending from Vulture's Peak mountain, he smiled at a certain spot. So Lakkana said to Mahamoggallana, "What is the cause, Reverend Moggallana? What is the reason you smile?" So in one occasion, as they were coming down from the mountain, the Venerable Moggallana just smiled at certain spot. So the Venerable Lakkana Thera was quite curious why that he was smiling. Then he questioned him, what's the cause and what's the reason that you smile there? Then Reverend Lakkana, then Moggallana Thera said, "Reverend Lakkana, it's the wrong time for this question. Ask me when we are in the Buddha's presence." So Venerable Moggallana Thera said, "This is the wrong time to give the answer. So please ask the presence of the Buddha." Then Lakkana and Moggallana wandered for alms in Rajagaha. After the meal, On their return from alms round, they went to the Buddha, bowed and sat down to one side. Lakkana said to Mahamoggallana, just now, as Mahamoggallana was descending from Vulture's Peak mountain, he smiled at a certain spot. What is the cause, Reverend Moggallana? What is the reason you smile? So as they discussed earlier, the Venerable Lakkana Thero posed the question in front of the Buddha to Venerable Moggallana Thero. Just now, Reverend, as I was descending from the Vulture's Peak mountain, I saw a skeleton flying through the air. Vultures, crows, and hawks kept chasing it, pecking, clawing, and stabbing it in the ribs as it screeched in pain. So the Venerable Moggallana Thero explained as he witnessed a skeleton flying through the air, and the beings in the Preta realm, like vultures, crows, and hawks, kept chasing it, and pecking, clawing, and stabbing with their beaks into the ribs or the bones, as the Preta was screaming in the pain. It occurred to me, oh, how incredible, how amazing that there can be such a sentient being, such an entity, such an incarnation. So when he witnessed this Preta, the skeleton Preta, he was amazed to see that. And he was so surprised to see that, and he was wondered about this sort of incarnation, rebirth. Then the Buddha said to the mendicants, there are disciples who live full of vision and knowledge. Since a disciple knows, sees, and witnesses such a thing, and the Buddha appreciates the Venerable Moggallana, as we know that he was appointed as the main bhikkhu who has the psychic powers, psychic abilities. Formerly, I too saw that being, but I did not speak of it. For if I had spoken of it, others would not have believed me, which would be for their lasting harm and suffering. So the Buddha said that he also witnessed that skeleton, but he never uttered a word because there was no one to prove that, or there's no any other witnesses. So now he has a witness. Venerable Moggallana Thero has seen it. Then the Buddha said, if someone does not believe me, that would be for their lasting harm and suffering. So then the Buddha also said that he also witnessed that. That being used to be a cattle butcher right here in the Rajagaha. As a result of that deed, he burned in hell for many years, many hundreds, many thousands, many hundreds of thousands of years. So we know that the Buddha had these special abilities. He was able to know when he sees someone or something maybe like this sort of suffering, he could say exactly what's the reason for that. So he said that this, the Preta, the skeleton Preta, was before butcher was killing cattle. So then he had to suffer in the bad places, like it explained here. He burned in the hell for many years. Then many hundreds and thousands of years he had to suffer in the hell, the Naraka. Then now he experiences the residual results of the deed in such an incarnation. So still, even though he had been born in the Naraka or the hell, still he had to suffer because of the residual unwholesome energies. So this is how it explained in the Lakkana Samyutta about the suffering that they go through in those sort of incarnations. So that's the first one in that collection of sutras, Lakkana Samyutta. So number 2 here briefly mentioned, there was another Petha whose body was like unto a piece of flesh, who was chased by crows, poked into flesh and eaten. Another Preta was seen similar to this. A Preta with its body sans skin was also seen. A Preta with wool all over body. The wool likened unto swords that cut through its body. A Preta with a wool covering likened unto weapons cutting into its body. Yet another Pretas with wool likened unto arrows that stabbed into its body. Still again, another Preta which had wool likened unto needles that sprang into air and back onto the Preta with pointed ends. Those needles piercing his head entered the body, and off they went through their mouth. Again coming through the mouth, go off through its chest. Still needles coming through the chest, go off through the stomach. Having again entered through the stomach, they leave through the thighs. Again coming through the thighs, pierce out of the feet. Still again, the needles stab into through the feet and the top of the head and go out jabbing through the soles. The Preta subjected to all these suffers dreadful pain. Another Preta has been seen with a scrotum large as a huge pitcher. While the Preta walked, it kept the scrotum on its shoulders and sat on it when it wanted to sit. A Preta was seen embedded its head down in a sewerage. A Preta drenched in a sewerage, eaten fecal matter.
Find the Grinch in the Singerage in your Apple Music.
A Preta drenched in a sewerage, eating fecal matter with both its was also seen. A Preta skinless was seen being eaten by havocs and crows. A Preta being consumed by havocs and crows being also foul smelling and deformed was seen. A Preta crying amidst burning coal. A Preta harassed by havocs and eagles having no head. Mouth and eyes on the chest. Luminous burning bhikshu, monk Preta in yellow robes. A similar female priest with yellow robes. Similar Silmata Preta. A Preta of a novice monk. Preta of a novice female monk. These all what had been seen by the great Arahant in Lakkana, Venerable Lakkana. Beside these, there are so many Pretas with the variety of body shapes, karma and bodies, not being supplied with food, no clothes, no houses to live, being burned by fire, being trapped in the whole lifetime with severages, being cut and chopped by weapons, and being eaten by brutes, are some of the santapa dukkha met in the sphere of pretas, as they are inflicted with the aforementioned types of suffering, pretas, khandhas are undoubtedly, so to speak, suffering and unsatisfactory. So this is the types of suffering that the pretas go through in the preta realms. So there are 21 types of pretas that the witnessed by Venerable Moggallana Thero explained in this Lakkana Samyutta. So and this shows us how the pretas that suffer in this the realms. So someone who does not have saddha won't be able to even believe or trust on these beings, how they suffer in those realms. They suffer, they hugely suffer, they go through incredible suffering in these realms. That was about the preta realms. Anything to discuss about the preta realm?
Avasara Bhante, here
Yes.
again, just like the animal world, they have to come
Yes,
up with some wholesome thoughts or something
yes.
like that at the end of their
At the,
lifetime.
yes, most probably in their lives, they will have to finish their maybe unwholesome karmas.
Karmas, yes, yeah.
Because as I mentioned earlier, that the skeleton preta, he had been born in Niraya for many years. And he came to this preta realm for the residual karmas, unwholesome karmas to pay off.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yes.
Bhante, so these pretas, when they are suffering, they are generating unwholesome thoughts due to the suffering as well.
It can happen, yes.
So then it's never like you cannot finish paying off sort of thing, because in the process of paying off or suffering the vipaka,
Yes.
you're again in a painful state. So you will have some anger or some unwholesome thought.
Yes.
Then it becomes a problem.
Mostly they may be generating unwholesome because of those bad experiences, those worse experiences. But still, as it mentions, when they finish their unwholesomes, maybe some of the wholesome actions can appear at their death moment, which they have done in their previous lives, and then they can come to the good places like humans.
Thank you, Bhante. Yeah, it's not very pleasant.
Yes. Even we can't, fathom or understand as this Venerable Moggallana Thero also, he was so surprised to witness that. And the Buddha said, the thing that the Buddha said was the quite important thing, because he said that he didn't say it, though he witnessed that.
Oh, it is.
So it's no wonder if when we say these things to someone, they'll probably make a joke.
Yes, because the level of suffering is very difficult to visualize.
Yes.
Or to.
It's way beyond than our experiences.
Yes, yeah. So we cannot comprehend it.
So only that we can trust these things because the saddha that we have put on the Buddha. Otherwise, it's quite difficult.
Yes, Bhante.
Okay, then say, let's see the world of Titans or the Asuras. The Titans are of various categories, those of whom are classified under hell are a group of beings resembling pretas. Their bodies are about 12 miles in length. They have a mouth about as tiny as the eye of a needle. The mouth is positioned at the top of the head. Since the mouth is so small, they have no opportunity whatsoever for quenching their hunger and thirst. Being destitute of nourishment, their bodies are skeleton, like without any appreciable amount of blood and flesh. Their eyes are like those of shrimps, prawns, jutting forward, being extremely weak and lacking in strength. They are unable even to get up. They are termed or given the epithet, the name, Kalakanjika Pretas. The grave suffering they go through from birth to death within expenses of thousands of years would not be there if not for their skandhas. As long as they possess their Titan Panchaskandhas, the Asura Panchaskandha, they have no way of escape or release from gruesome suffering. Therefore, it should be very clear that the Titan Panchaskandha is but suffering. So in the Asura realm also, as mentioned earlier, they have to suffer hugely. As it explained, there is a their bodies are about like 12 miles in length, and their mouth is very, very small, as it mentions here, like the tiny as the eye of a needle. So they cannot quench their thirst or hunger. So that's how they suffer in the Asura realm. Then the Niraya. Out of suffering laden realms of most macabre or gruesome is the purgatory. There are a multiplicity of purgatories or nirayas. As I mentioned earlier, in the sutras it explains like 136 nirayas with the 8 main nirayas, then some small ones. Each purgatory has its own forms of instilling abominable suffering upon those who have erred. Being burned by fire, being fixed on to lances on the lava like heated floor, the body hashed to shreds and pieces, the body being put asunder by double-edged swords, being made to drink hot molten copper and swallow hot molten balls of lava, being grinded by rolling huge mountain-like rocks, body being bruised by smoke entering the sense doors, being prodded and eaten by havocs with metal-like beaks, being clubbed by the guardians of hell, agents of Yama, like cows, being tied onto carts and made to haul them with gigantic weights and bulks, being made to run about till the body cut and hacked, in fields of knives, like grass blades, and swords like leaves. Once the body is cut and chopped, and become like unto a piece of blood, diffuse flesh, it being thrown into the rivers of saltish water, being halted into sewerages, wherein are worms that eat through skin, flesh, and synovial joints, are only an inconspicuous speck of suffering as it exists in some of the purgatories. So this shows how much suffering that they go through in the Niras. All in all, the suffering in the purgatory can never be brought within the boundary of limit by stipulations as far 100 years or 1,000 years. Once Buddha remarked that parable, the gallows to elicit the overwhelming of bitter suffering in the purgatory. So there's a parable which shows how plentiful suffering, plentiful amount of suffering that they go through in the Nira. Thereat one bhikkhu stood up and requested the Buddha to bring out a parable to illustrate the suffering met by those in the purgatories. The Buddha replied, "Bhikkhus, the soldiers catch a thief and bring him before the king and solicit the king to duly punish him. The king orders to take him away, and in the morning to stab with a lance 100 times." We've discussed this sort of parable even before. What the Buddha said here is that the soldiers, when they bring a thief into a king, he said, give stabs, 100 stabs in the morning. Then in the noon, he questions about him, the king. Then it was said that he still did not die. Then he orders again, give 100 stabs. And then in the evening also, the king questions the soldiers, and then it was said that still not dead. Then the king orders again to give 100 stabs. Then the Buddha questions the monks, what would you think about this suffering? Then the monks replied like, even one stab is an incredible suffering. So there's nothing to talk about 100 or then 200 or 300 in the 3 times. Then the Buddha said the parable like, this suffering is very small compared to the Nira. Then the Buddha took a small pebble from the ground, and then the Buddha questions the monks, what do you think? This pebble or the Himalaya that you can see from here, what is the huge one, the bigger one? Then the monks replied, the Venerable Sir, the Himalaya mountain is incredibly huge. We can't even compare with this small pebble. Then the Buddha said, monks, understand the suffering in the hell is like the Himalaya mountain. The parable that I explained as stabbing 300 times morning, noon, and the evening is like this small pebble. So this shows how much suffering that the beings in the Nira that they go through. So the Buddha explained this suffering to illustrate or to show the suffering that the beings who are in the Nira that they go through. the bhikkhus even saw sorrow and suffering of the thief stricken 300 lance steps. Is not thousands, nor 10,000s, nor yet 100,000 part of suffering inflicted in the purgatory. So it said that the amount of suffering that they go through in the Niraya, the catastrophic agony and the lamentation suffered by the inmates of the purgatory would not have come about if not for the existence of the purgatorial Panchaskandhas. So long as the skandhas exist, so long would the suffering last. Consequently, purgatorial suffering is an act of oppression by the Panchaskandhas. Thus, purgatorial skandhas are but suffering. The skandhas of all the realms encompassing the highest Brahma world is worlds to the degrading, severest of suffering fraught Avicii purgatory, Avicii Niraya, including all beings of varying sizes and shapes are by their very nature oppressive. The Pidana, the conditioned Sankata, the despairing Santapa, the distortive and changing Viparinam, as all the skandhas of all the manifold beings are battered by these four lamentable characteristics. So that they certainly are suffering. The person who sees this realizes what is most difficult to realize, the first noble truth of the fact of suffering, the dukkha. So the four types of suffering here, the pidana, the very nature, oppressive, the conditioned nature, the sankata, the santapa, despairing nature, the burning nature, then the changing nature, the viparinama. So these are the four types of suffering that we've discussed. So the beings, wherever they get their birth, they suffer. Even though the Brahma realms, they also within this frame of suffering, even though their suffering is less, incredibly less compared to the beings who are being on the four woeful places, but still they can be born as the Petas or the Niraya beings as well. So if someone is within this range of skandhas, which means they are in suffering. So these are the four natures of the suffering that we discuss so far about all the beings. So I think now that you can get some sort of picture how these skandhas are made according to according to where they get their rebirth. Like for an example, like Brahmas, they also have skandhas, but they're quite different. When it comes to the humans and the beings where they get their rebirth in the bad places like animals, then Petas, Asuras, and beings in the Niraya or the great hell. So all of them have these skandhas, which means nothing but suffering. So this is about the four types of suffering that the beings undergo all the time. So next time that we can discuss about the 12 modes of suffering. So far we've discussed about the suffering regard to the 5 aggregates or the Panchaskandhas. So anything to discuss more questions or anything that we can discuss? Mahinda Mahatma?
Bhante, now, for example, they talk of the purgatorial Panchaskanda. So is that word Panchaskanda there, has it got the same meaning as the Panchaskanda that we refer to in the human realm, or is it different in some way?
Maybe the ultimate realities is quite same. As for an example, like the rupa maybe manifests in difference, but ultimate realities should be the same.
Avasrai Bhante, that means Vedana, Sanya, Sankara and the Vijnana are the same.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, apart from the Rupa, yes, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Because according to these teachings, there's nothing but the aggregates or the skandhas.
Yes.
As we learn the ultimate realities,
Yes.
so they appear in different ways in different realms. But in ultimate sense, they're only ultimate realities. There should be, because otherwise the Buddha should mention there is some different aggregates or something.
Yes.
The way it manifests in a particular realm
Bit differently.
may be different, but the
Oh, yeah.
ultimate
The rupa,
reality
only
is
the rupas.
only the rupas.
Yes. The other, the psychological realities.
So is that, so can we then from that interpret that the consciousness works in a similar way even in the Preta realms and ghostly realms, etc.?
Yes. It should be in the same way. That's why that we discussed the Petas were they were crying because of pain and agony.
So the functionality of the consciousness has got nothing to do with the human intellect.
Know that the humans can develop their consciousnesses, not like the
Develop means you have the ability to change it or alter it, is it?
no, I mean develop means that you can understand what is a good, what's a bad, then you can develop your concentration, you can develop your inside knowledge. That's how that you can cut off the unwholesome or the defilements.
So in the other realms, the skandha's functionality and the consciousness just occurs in its natural form and they have little control over it.
Yes, yes.
So that is the main differentiation then in the human realm, that we have that ability to take some control.
Control, and we can develop our mentality, and we can cut off the defilements and the suffering that they go through.
Because of our ability to develop it.
Yes.
So in the other realms, they have little or no control over that process of the
Yes, because
skandha.
yes, they cannot understand what is good, what is bad. They have the little, very, very little control over it.
And then in the wholesome worlds, in the Brahma worlds and all those, do they have a greater control over their?
Of course.
Than the human realm?
Yes, definitely, because that they they don't have any defilements.
defilements.
Yes, they live in pure bliss.
But Bhante, does bliss equate to a better
Bliss,
understanding and control, or is it just simply the way they get the karma vipaka is blissful?
bliss, what I meant was like their happy nature because of less of defilements.
Yes, but my question was actually, does that necessarily mean that they have more ability to develop their consciousness than in the human realm?
Yes, because for an example, like humans, when they are overcome by defilements, see,
Okay, yeah.
but when they don't have any defilements, you see the difference.
The lack of the blissful realms, is it that the motivation to further develop becomes less because there is less suffering?
Sorry, Mahanmanta, I didn't get your question. Yeah.
So in a blissful world,
Yes.
because there is less suffering, so as to speak of, is there a lesser motivation to develop your consciousness or to...
Of course, it can be, yes.
So it's like a negative positive.
Well, what they're experiencing is not
Positive.
like, positive and not like...
The outcome could be that there is less motivation.
Yes, but still, if they come to the human realm, that they have more possibility. There are stations that they can practice quite well because their mind is so pure. They come to human realm and they get the pre-rooted the life, the rebirth, and if they met with the good Kalyana Mitras, or when they are able to listen to the teachings, they can understand pretty quickly than other people, other beings. But still, that there are some Brahmas even in the Buddha's time, before the Buddha was born. So gaining jhana is not only in the Buddhist teachings. In last time there was so many people who generated jhanas. So when you study these things, that you can understand, you can develop your understanding about how the round of rebirth, or the samsara, the nature.
Oh, sorry, Bhante. So in the lower realms, they basically have to rely on the wholesome karmas they have done in past lives.
Most probably, yes.
Because there is no generation of wholesome karma or anything like that. Yeah.
That's why the Buddha has explained in so many places that being a human is very difficult, very rare. Once you go to one of those bad or mortal places, it's incredibly difficult to come out.
Come out, yeah. 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 Now only I realize the value of, I mean, even though I have heard of this, that it's incredibly rare and all that. Yeah. When you learn these things, only you realize.
It only makes sense. It's just...
Yeah, it makes more sense. Yeah. Thank you, Bhante.
So even the Preta realms, they are the difference, the diversity is high.
Also, Bhante, in the animal world, Bhante said that at the time of death that they can generate wholesome thoughts.
It's not
Do they have the
thoughts. It's not just wholesome thoughts. As we learn how there are three sort of objects appear in anyone's dying moment.
the karma nimiti and the gati nimiti.
So of course,
Yeah.
karma object and gati, where they go or get their rebirth, or some instrument that they use to perform the karma.
Yes.
So it's not actually they generate wholesome. One of those objects appear in their dying moment.
Yes. That again is based on previous karmas.
Yes,
It's not something in our control, no, Bhante. It is something that happens through the karmic process.
Yes, but for humans, as we learned, the consciousness processes like chitta viti, it explains like chakkudvarika maranasan viti. So the very last series of consciousness can be wholesome when you see some wholesome things.
Yes.
So that's why Buddhists tend to invite monks for those who are in deathbeds, chanting and doing all these things. So those sort of things can help for them to generate wholesome thoughts, wholesome mindset in their dying moment. We can't say that it's not in our control in that sense.
But then, Bhante, we were talking about that other, I forget that king who was dying and then some fan knocked him and he got angry and that he went to the hell world.
Yes.
King Asoka.
Yeah. So things like that sort of indicate that even if the outside world tries to take you to a better place, your own karma can...
Yes, of course. For those who have hatred towards maybe monks or something, so in its deathbed, if somebody invites for monks, so he can get angry or something like that.
Yeah.
It can work both
against us.
ways. So, but still that those who are around, that they can do sort of great help if they understand. But still the chances may be very less because one who faces the death is the one who has to deal with it.
People who have things like dementia, illnesses such as dementia, I wonder how the consciousness works because they are not apparently. Or then what about this other diseases where you have lost contact with your sensory organs and you're just in a vegetative state? Then maybe it's a karma alone that plays a role, Bhante.
Of course, there is something called fixed laws, niyamas. There's something called chitta niyama. So the chitta niyama cannot go wrong. So the things that, for an example, like we discuss about papers, right? There's so many sort of papers. So still there are the process of consciousness work. It doesn't matter how they appear, their appearance, it doesn't matter. The mental process, it works for even humans. Only we see the outside like dementia or some maybe other problems. There's a certain way that the mind works, so it goes on.
Mm.
Yes, there's nothing to, change due to diseases, or at the end of the day, dementia or whatever it is, it's sort of disease.
Mm.
But still, that it doesn't, I think, it does not affect the mind process, how mind works.
So, Bhante, one thing is the mind is separate from the brain itself, isn't it?
Yes, of course,
Yes,
as we
yes,
discussed.
yeah.
Yeah, that is why it's a process devoid of the physical world.
Yes, devoid, but there should be some help.
Yeah,
Yes, but completely or mostly out of,
independent.
you can say sort of independent, as we discuss these teachings, but in some occasions that we have to understand that there is a huge sort of significant influence by the materiality towards the mind as well.
Mhm.
For an example, like sometimes people get sick when they get hit something to their head, they forget things or something like
Yeah.
that. So we can't deny that that fact as well, that the body or the materiality also has some impact on how mind works. But we can't say that the process, how mind works, cannot be said that mostly or immensely infected by those, affected by the materiality.
Bhante, in that example where you took about if the head has a blow and you forget your memory, even in that situation, the chittaviti continue to operate
Also, only what we see,
irrespective of the memory side.
yes, only what
Yes.
we see is how he shows his emotions or something like that.
Yeah. Very complex to fully comprehend.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yes, it's
So,
not it's up to our range.
yeah. Even a person in a coma, I suppose it's like that.
Of course, as I mentioned,
Yeah.
earlier, it's just sort of
Yeah.
business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Mm.
So the consciousness goes on basically,
Yes. So
even
imagine
though,
the praetors or the praetors and the beings who are born in the Nereids, as we discuss how
yeah,
they go through the suffering.
yeah,
Still their mind works and their
works.
ultimate, realities, they work. It's not inflicted, unaffected. And even I think we've discussed in the Abhidhamma class, there are some places where there's no body, like asanya sattva,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
So then, we don't need to worry about how the body appears or what are the
Yes. Yeah.
still the mind works in its way. And there's another place in the Brahma realm, the fine material Brahma realm. Only the body, only the materiality, right? The asana sattva Brahma realm, as we discuss.
Mm.
So yes, these sort of beings in the world, but they still continue the round of rebirth. Yes, any question? If not, that we can wind up here. Or any idea to share?
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, then let's wind up here. The next week that we can discuss the 12 modes of suffering, 12 types of suffering. Okay, let's then wind up our small Dhamma discussion here. So today that we all discuss Dhamma and listen to the Dhamma, and we generated enormous amounts of wholesome thoughts. So let's share these wholesome thoughts to the departed ones. Dhammi ñāti
Tinam hotu sukhita hontu ñāte idami ñāti nam hotu sukhita hontu ñāte idami ñāti nam hotu sukhita hontu ñāte.
Let's also marriage to the divine beings as well. The thought Samghatam Sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiyam Bhavata cha amhi Sabbatam Sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiyam Bhavata cha amhi Sambhatam punya sampadaṃ Abhi deva Sabba sampatti. Everyone Saranayam Vinata, may the noble triple gem bless you all.
So
May you have a lot of merit, Bhante. Thank you.
Everyone Saranayam.
Turun Saranayam.